by thinking, what's active voice? In an active voice, the subject performs the action. Let's look into this example. What did his mother cook for dinner? Question word is what? Subject is his mother. Verb is did plus cook. Here, cook is the base form of the verb. We cannot directly identify the object because we don't know what his mother is cooking. So, to make our understanding easier, let's assume the object as something means his mother is cooking something. Now, please observe closely. Here, you can see the question word and the object have close relations. Do you find it a little difficult to understand? Don't worry. We assumed the object as something. When we ask the question what, we get the answer something. Are you okay till here? If so, can we say the question word actually stands for the object? Now I think things are clearer for you. When we transform this active voice to its passive voice, we should retain the question word in the beginning of the sentence. If the auxiliaries are forms of do in the active voice, use the appropriate forms of be in the passive voice. Add the past participle of the main verb and the preposition by in the passive voice. Then add the subject in the active voice as object in the passive voice, and here we get cooked by his mother for dinner. Let's break down this active voice. The question word is who. The subject is also who. Here, on the contrary to what we discussed earlier, the subject itself is who, the question word. I hope you remember the connection between the object and the question word that we discussed in the previous example. In order to avoid the confusion, please watch the video carefully and repeatedly and treat this question as an exceptional case. The verb is wrote. When we break down the verb, we get did plus write. And you know that it's in the past tense. Hope you'll remember to retain the same tense of the active voice in the passive voice also, and the object is the book. The passive voice of this sentence is by whom the book was written. When we break down this sentence, we get the question word and the object is by whom. The subject is the book. The object in the active voice will become the subject in the passive voice. The verb is was written and it is was plus the past participle of the verb write. Now, let's look into what all things we need to remember while transforming an active voice beginning with the question word who to its passive voice. Retain the question word in the beginning of a sentence. In the case of who, use its object form whom in the passive voice. Add the preposition by before the word who. Then add the object in the active voice as the subject in the passive voice. If the auxiliaries are forms of do in the active voice, use the appropriate forms of be in the passive voice. Add the past participle of the main verb here, and here we get the passive voice. By whom was the book written? Please don't forget to give the question mark at the end of the passive voice also. Now, let's look into the yes or no questions. Yes or no questions demand either yes or no as their answers. They always begin with an auxiliary. For example, did she complete the project? Let's break down the sentence. Did is the auxiliary verb. She is the subject. Complete is the main verb and the project is the object. The passive voice of this is was the homework completed by her? Let us break down this sentence too. The auxiliary verb is was, the project is the subject. Remember that the object in the active voice will become the subject in the passive voice. Completed is the past participle form of the verb, and her is the object when we transform yes or no interrogative sentence active voice to its passive voice. Retain the auxiliary verb in the beginning of the sentence. If the auxiliary verb is the form of do, use the appropriate form of be in the passive voice. Here, place the object in the active voice as the subject in the passive voice. Add the past participle of the main verb and then the preposition by and finally the object. Remember that the subject in the active voice will become the object in the active voice, and here we get the passive voice was the project completed by her. Same is the case with yes or no questions beginning with forms of have or modal auxiliaries. Questions beginning with have. Have they built a house? Active voice. Auxiliary verb. Have, subject, they, past participle, build, object, house. The passive voice of the sentence. Has a house been built by them? First auxiliary verb has, subject, a house. Second auxiliary, it's a form of be, and here it is been. Past participle, built. Object, by, that's a preposition, and after that, them. Have they built a house? What are things we should remember when we transform this sentence beginning with have to its passive form? Retain the auxiliary verb in the beginning of the sentence. Place the object in the active voice as the subject in the passive voice. If the auxiliary verb is form of have in the active voice, use appropriate forms of have in the passive voice. Add the past participle of the main verb. Add by the preposition plus the object. The subject in the active voice will become object in the passive voice. And here we get the passive voice. Has a house been built by them? Now, here we go for a question beginning with the modal auxiliary. Will your friend bring the book? It's an active voice. When we break down the sentence, we get modal auxiliary verb will, subject, your friend, verb, base form. Verb is a base form, means after modal auxiliary, we have to use the base form of the verb bring. Object, the book. The passive voice is, will the book be brought by your friend? When we break down this passive voice, first modal auxiliary verb will, subject, the book. Second auxiliary, it's a form of be itself. Past participle, brought. Object, by, it's a preposition, plus your friend. The things to remember while we transform these kinds of active voices to their passive voices. Retain the modal auxiliary verb in the beginning of the sentence. Place the object in the active voice as the subject in the passive voice. In case of modal auxiliary verbs use be. Add the past participle of the main verb. Add by the preposition plus the object. The subject in the active voice will become object in the passive voice. And here we get the passive voice. Will the book be brought by your friend? General rules of active to passive transformation. Identify the subject, verb, and object in the active sentence. Move the object to the subject's position. Use the correct form of to be plus past participle of the verb. Adjust auxiliary verbs and question structure. Common errors found in the transformation. Misplacing the auxiliary verb in passive voice. Incorrect use of the past participle form. Neglecting to adjust the subject-object relationship. Not retaining the interrogative structure of the sentences, not providing question mark at the end of the passive voice. Practice exercise. Transform the following sentences to their passive voices. Did she solve the problem? Who discovered America? Why did they delay the meeting? Friends, if you would like to get the answers for these questions, please do comment below. Active and passive voice have specific transformations in interrogative sentences. Yes or no questions and WH questions follow distinct rules. Practice makes the transformation process easier. Thank you so much for watching this video. Well, if you haven't subscribed so far, and click the bell icon to stay updated with our latest lessons. Together we can make learning English easy and enjoyable. Thank you and happy learning.